Hello, everyone. This is Kerwin, and welcome to another episode of What's Happening in Travel with Kusho and Kerwin. Kusho is not here today, so it's just me. Today, we're going to be talking about I did a flight with Norse, and Norse is the new carrier that's flying across the Atlantic. I think they picked up most of their routes that Norwegian used to fly, and probably some of the airplanes that they used to fly also. So Norse flies, they're based in Oslo. They fly transatlantic, and they've been going to, I flew them out of Fort Lauderdale to Berlin, but they also fly out of JFK, and they're going to go JFK Gatwick, JFK to Oslo, and I actually did two flights with them. The first flight was Fort Lauderdale to Berlin, and then I flew back from Oslo to JFK. They used to fly, they're currently flying Oslo to London and then London back to JFK, but I think they're going to cut out the Oslo to JFK, Oslo to Gatwick portion, and just do Gatwick over across the Atlantic. So they have several routes that they want to fly. And I did a flight, and I wanted to talk about that flight that I did. So this flight was I needed to get from Fort Lauderdale to Berlin, and I decided to take this flight because when I looked at the other fares going across to Berlin at that time, they were like, the round trip was like $1,300. Because in March, during that time, there's a conference in Berlin, and it's extremely expensive to get to Berlin. So what I'm going to walk through. It's going to be kind of flip flop between my experiences on the flight, and if you wanted to take Norse, what would you do, right? So I'm going to jump over to the computer. I'm going to share my screen, and then we're going to take a look at what you would see when you go on low-cost carriers. Now remember, low-cost carriers, how they work is they charge you for the fare, and then they charge you for each aspect of what you use. So as an example, if you want a seat assignment, you need to pay for your seat assignment. If you want a meal, you need to pay for your meal. If you want to take a carry-on bag that's larger than the little one that they say you should take, you need to pay for that. If you want to check a bag, you need to pay for that. If you need a blanket, you need to pay for that. You need a headset, you need to pay for that. So basically, you pay for everything. So what you need to do as a traveler is look at the fare of a full-service carrier. And a full-service carrier is one where they charge you one price, and you kind of get everything. Although a lot of these full-service carriers now are charging you for seat assignments and check-in bags and things like that. It just depends on your elite status, or if you have like a credit card with that particular airline. So it's good to look and see if I pay, let's say I pay $100 on a full service carrier, and I'm gonna pay $20 on the low cost carrier, but then I need to add all the little things that goes in there. I may end up spending the same $100, right? So it just depends. So you definitely need to look at, and I'll look at the fares and so you can see for yourself. In my case, no matter how much I added, I would never have gotten to the $1,300 that they had. Plus, when I booked my fare, they had a fare sale going on. Now, the fare sale wasn't there on the Fort Lauderdale to Berlin portion. It was actually there on the Oslo to JFK portion, that $119 fare, which was actually quite good. I guess I can talk a little bit first about my experience, and then we'll share some examples. So I was flying out of Fort Lauderdale, and when I booked, I booked the basic because I just have a backpack. And so what I did, I made sure everything I had could fit in that backpack, and that backpack matched whatever their size is. They do have sizes at the airport. So when you get to the airport, you're going to see these little things, and it's a little sizer, and you can see a photo. I put a photo in here if you're watching it. But it's a sizer. It checks the size of your carry-on, and it also checks the size of your I guess they call it your personal item. I never do these sides of things. I see people sticking their stuff in there and trying to get stuff in there. I know my stuff fits. I just never bother doing that. So I get to Fort Lauderdale, and the traffic to Fort Lauderdale was manic. So if you're going out of Fort Lauderdale, for some reason at 9 o'clock at night, well, this is maybe 8 o'clock. The traffic is ridiculous. And Fort Lauderdale, you do have arrival and departures, but I had to return a car, so I had to go on the departure level, and the traffic was just manic to get out of there. So what I did, I dropped the car off, and then there's a little shuttle bus that takes you down to the terminal. Norse leaves out of Terminal 4 in Fort Lauderdale. There are four terminals in Fort Lauderdale. Terminal 1 and 2, and Terminal 3 and 4. 3 and 4 are connected. 1 and 2, I don't think are connected. And so 3 and 4 is not connected to 2 and 1 either, which is kind of weird. A lot of US airports have this, and it's like, you've done this forever, and you know that people are going to connect from different flights. Why do you make it so difficult? So basically, let's say I flew in Spirit, which is in Terminal 4, I would have to get out of security. And if I'm connecting to say United, I'd have to go all the way over to Terminal 1 and get this. The traffic only goes in one direction. So if I have a bag or something and I got to take a shuttle bus, I got to take the shuttle bus, leave the airport from Terminal 4, and come all the way back around to Terminal 1, which is where United is. Or I can backtrack with my bags on the curb and try to get to Terminal 1. So it's very ridiculous how they do it. And I wish the airports would step back and think about, how do I get the passenger to and from where they're going? Forget how you think they should be traveling. Look at how they're traveling, because you know how many people arrive in one terminal and how many people depart from another terminal, so you can make it better. But I don't think they're interested. At least it doesn't seem that way. But I digress. As I do always. Don't get me started. We're probably going to do an episode about all the airports that have ridiculous connections, because some airports really have awful connections, and Fort Lauderdale is one of them. So I get off at 3 because 3 is right next to 4, and it made sense. I just got off, and then I walked down to the end of now. Norse is at the end of Terminal 4. They're actually in the corner at Terminal 4, and walked in. Great check-in experience. They're supposed to have a thing for premium. Now they had a screen up for premium, but there wasn't anyone there to take anyone for premium. Now my guess is either there wasn't any premium passenger on the flight, so they figured they don't need it. But they had a sign, but there wasn't any agent there, so who knows what they were doing. But went up to the agent. Now the annoying thing was, I was able to check in online. I have check-in in quotes because it said this is not a boarding pass. I had to go to the airport, which is super annoying. The other thing too is that they don't have TSA pre, and so which means that when I get to the airport, I have to take out all my stuff, which is equally annoying. And they don't have an app, so you can't use an app to check in. But I checked in online, but then it said I had to go to the airport to get my boarding pass. Now, I don't know if it's because they want to make sure that my carry-on is my carry-on, because I said I didn't have any check bags. I didn't have a carry-on. All I had was my backpack, which I'm allowed because they allow you one personal item. And you'll see when I do the fares, all the different things that they have. So it wasn't very long. I waited like 10 minutes, and the agent tried to upsell me to premium, which I think is why they want you to come to the airport. I didn't ask how much it was, but later on the flight, before departure, they were selling premium upgrades for $250. Now, I don't think it's worth it. The difference is that you get 2 meals, plus you get a bigger seat, and it reclines. But that's it. Oh, and I think you actually get a free drink with your meal. But I didn't think that was worth $250, but that's just me. So I got checked in, got my boarding pass, and then I had to go through security. And now I don't have TSA pre. And in Terminal 4, they actually do have a kiosk. So if Norse decides to allow you to use kiosks to check in, all they have to do is work at the airport and be able to put their application in the kiosk that they have there. So once I got through security, so TSA pre is closed. Most airports close them at like 8 o'clock or some ridiculous time like that. I'm like, you have a ton of flights, and I'm telling you, there was a ton of flights in Terminal 4. And so you have all these ton of flights taken off, but TSA pre is closed, which makes zero sense. But I don't get it. But anyway, I didn't have TSA pre, so it didn't really matter. So of course I had to take off my shoes, take out all my stuff, which is really annoying. And then I went through security, which wasn't too bad after all that. And then I just kind of walked the airport, went and checked out the gate and checked out the airplane as I normally do. And I just waited for the flight. But they do have a lounge in Terminal 4. It's actually in Terminal 3 or between Terminal 3 and Terminal 4. And it's an American Express. It's not a full Centurion lounge. It's like an American Express associated lounge. But they close at 9. And I got there at 9:15 or some ridiculous time like that. So I couldn't use it. Again, another stupid thing, right? You have a lounge at the airport. You have passengers leaving. Why don't you have the lounge open later? I don't understand how airports think. It's like, what's the point of having a lounge if your customers can't use it when they need it the most? But anyway, wasn't able to use the lounge. So I just kind of walked around. And then because the flight was departing at 11, and they board by group number, and there's a group number that's actually on your boarding pass. I was group 3, and they boarded group 1, 2, 3. I think it goes up to group 6. Now I don't know what it means, the group numbers, because they I didn't pay for a seat because I wanted to see how the system worked, and they randomly assigned me 33E, which is in the dead center of the plane. And in that particular airplane, they have different cabins. So they have the premium economy economy cabin. Then they have another section where it's extra leg room. It's like $75 for the seat because you get more leg room. And then there's a regular economy cabin. Most of the passengers were sitting in the regular economy cabin. Matter of fact, on board, they offered an upgrade, but I'm jumping ahead. I get boarded, and it's a 787-9. This one is actually called Everglades. And you get on board, you get greeted as you go, and they show you where your seat is. And I get to my seat, and there's a gentleman sitting in my seat. And I asked him, well, what seat do you have? And he said, well, he was very confident that he was in the right seat. And I'm very confident that I have the right seat, but he was sitting in it. So then he looked at his boarding pass and he goes, oh, I'm so sorry, I have 36E. So then he moved back to 36E, and another person with the middle seat. But when I looked at the seat map at one point, a lot of like from row 34 back, most all the seats were taken. But I ended up having the two seats, the two aisle seats next to me empty. Weird, right? I would even EasyJet would give me most of the times in EasyJet I'll get an aisle. It's extremely rare that I will get a middle seat on EasyJet. And again, whenever these airlines give you those middle, it's because they want to sell the other seats, right? And I don't think people really pay for the seats at the last minute. But then I don't have enough data to really, support that. But from what I've seen when I've flown, I don't think people end up paying for the last minute seats. But anyway, I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong anyway. But it wasn't too bad. So we got settled in. The crew came by, said hello. The crew is actually really, really very nice. And so each seat, they have the typically you can plug a USB port in. And I plugged mine in, and it didn't work. And I plugged it into the middle seat because I'd moved over to the aisle by now. And I plugged it into the middle seat and that didn't work either. I plugged it into the other aisle seat and that didn't work. So for whatever reason, my entire 3 was not working. A flight attendant came by and I told her about it. And she said she rebooted the power, not the whole seat, just the power, and it still didn't work. So then I was looking for the plug to plug. I said, well, maybe they have a plug to plug my computer in. I couldn't find one. I looked everywhere that it would normally should be, and it wasn't. So then she came by and she got on her knees and she goes, it's right under the seat. And I don't know who thought this up, but they stuck it like when you sit in the seat, right under your left leg if you're on the aisle, because it's a 3-3-3 configuration, and I'm on the left of the middle 3. And it's like it's literally stuck between where the top of the seat, the bottom of the seat is, and the top of the thing that the seat sits on is where they put it. So it's so difficult to find and so difficult to plug something in. So she got on her knees and she found it, and I plugged in the phone and it worked. And so that was good. So kudos to her for finding it because I didn't. And there's 2 per triple is what is a term that they use. So there's 2 of those plugs for 3 seats. So then at one point before we left, they made an announcement that said, hey, you can buy don't change your seats because of weight restrictions and weight imbalance. I was like, oh, really? That's the explanation you're going to use to tell people not to move? Come up with something else. And then they said, however, though, we're selling upgrades for $75. I think it was $75 you can pay to upgrade to extra legroom section of the cabin. Nobody took him up on that. And then I saw this guy moved into the exit row, and she came and she said, sir, you cannot sit in the exit row unless you pay for it. And the guy's like, but it's empty. And she's like, you cannot sit there. And so eventually he left and sat in the seat just behind it. So, you kind of when you have that kind of stuff on airplanes, you put the crew in a really weird situation because that crew has to police the policies. And customers, they know it. They know because they bought the ticket online, so they know that those seats cost more. But they're going to try to sit there anyway. And this wasn't only once that it happened. It happened again, and the flight attendant again came down and said, it's a different person this time, and told the guy he had to move. Now, the interesting thing was this guy was actually sitting in the cabin that had the more expensive seats, and he moved back to the exit row to sit. So I can't remember if the price of the exit row is the same as the $75 for the extra leg room seats, because they have different prices for the seats. Right? I think there was like 35, 75, and like one of them was 120. So maybe that exit row was 120. But it just, I don't know. There needs to be a different way to do it rather than have the flight attendants be the unpleasant policeman say, hey, sir, you're sitting on the wrong seat, or ma'am, you have to move. Now they, so the pilot came on, they said that the flight time is going to be about 8 hours something, but we're still taking on fuel. So they had to wait because the flight had just come in. I think it came in from Berlin. And the weird thing was my entertainment system, the one at the aisle actually had JFK Berlin. I don't even know how it would have a JFK Berlin flight map set up when that's not even the routing for the previous flight. But anyway, that's what it had. The middle one had it correctly. And so I knew that seat needed to be rebooted. And so later I asked the flight attendant to do it, and he did. And by the way, when he did, the power worked. So it just needed to be rebooted. What else? Oh, so we buckled up, and nobody else came and sat in the 2 aisle seats. So I was good to go. I got the whole row to myself. I don't lie down on airplanes well. So I took the extra space, but I didn't really lie down like most people do. Someone said I got the Norse lie flat seats, because when you get on, one thing too, when you get on, the armrests are up, And you could tell that they didn't go through, like there's no QA, unfortunately, because if there was, this wouldn't have happened. Where you're walking through the airplane and I got on early enough, and there's a lot of empty seats, and you're walking through the airplane and there isn't um they some of the seat belts are across each other, some are just thrown on the sides, some armrests are down, some armrests are up. I think all the armrests should be up and all the seat belts should be crossed based on kind of what I saw. So there's no QA to go through and make sure the airplane looks presentable for the passengers. I think that should have been done. A lot of airlines don't do that, but especially if you're a low cost carrier, right? It's a long haul flight. You're not giving out blankets and pillows and stuff like that for free. There's none of that. So it just looks a little disheveled when you come on the board and the airplane is not looking nice. But that's just me, right? Probably because I've flown too many airlines to see how it's actually done. And I think they should have done that, but they didn't do that. But most of the seats were like that, where the armrests were up, but the seat belts is a thing that wasn't put back in most of the places. I don't know if they were rushing. I have no idea what the deal was. The flights that were coming in at 9, and they did arrive at 9, so I don't think that was the case. I always bring my stuff to clean airplanes anyway, because nowadays nobody cleans the planes. I couldn't tell if this was clean or not, but I cleaned it. I always do. So we eventually buckled up, and 8 hours 40 minutes was the flying time. We were going to arrive a little early. Whenever airlines say they're going to arrive early, don't believe them, because they have specific times and specific slots. And oftentimes when they get to an airport, somebody is sitting at the gate and they have to wait. And it's always happening when you go into like Heathrow and Gatwick. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to arrive early. I'm like, yeah, sure we are. You get there and you're circling. And then when you finally get in, somebody's sitting at your gate, because that's what usually happens. You have to wait. And I'll tell you later if this is a situation or not with this flight. So we got buckled up, a little lengthy taxi out, and took off. Now, after we took off and leveled off, the flight attendants came by and they were offering blankets, eye shades, and headsets. I think they were like $5 or something like that. I'll show you in a sec how much they were. And so you had to buy all those if you needed them. I had my jacket, so I used my jacket because I do get cold in the airplanes. I just didn't want to pay $5 for a blanket, but that's just me. So if you're gonna fly Norse and you don't want to pay for a blanket, take one with you, but take a little one. They have some little ones that you can buy. And actually, I think you get to keep it when you buy it because it's yours, right? So you get to keep it. So if you're going to fly again, just wash it and bring it back with you. And so they sold that first, and then they came through. And if you had ordered a meal, they served you that meal. It's a hot meal that they have. And if they had extras, then you could buy it. It's like $10. But they didn't have any extras. They serve it with a little bread or something like that. What I had done is I went and I bought a muffin because I was going to be my breakfast on landing. And I got some water in the airport because you can't bring your water through the airport. And I had some peanuts or cashew nuts, I think it was, to bring with you. So if you don't want to buy the snacks, they do sell snacks on board, but they do give you tea, coffee, and water. So you can get that at which is complimentary. But anything outside of that, you do have to pay for. But if you don't want to pay, you can bring your own. Now on airlines like Scoot, which was owned by Singapore Airlines now, and they fly from Singapore to like Australia and places like that. You have to pay sorry, not have to pay. You can't bring your own food. They actually tell you, they said, we prepare really yummy food, something like to that effect. So you don't need to bring your own. And it's actually very, very good. It's like 10 Singapore dollars, which is not too much money. And so, but Norse allowed you to bring your own food. You can bring your own stuff. So it's not too bad. The entertainment system, they have a bunch of movies on there, so it's not too bad. And there's some games. I think I ended up playing a word game, which was actually quite good. And but the little headsets that they sell, I didn't buy that on the outbound flight, but on the inbound, I'm probably reviewing two flights in one, right? But I'd gotten one on the inbound for the return flight, and they're terrible. Now, this is not really a Norse thing. This is an industry-wide thing. The company that they buy these really crappy headsets from, they sound like tin cans. Um, and I don't know. I'm guessing that the people who buy this stuff don't test the stuff. But airlines need to stop buying those headsets, or the companies that make them need to step it up a little bit because they're terrible. And you can tell the difference. You just put your regular headset that came with your phone, not even a fancy headset, a headset that came with your phone. Put those in, and then put those headset that you bought on the planes, and they are horrible. So I think industry needs to do something about that, because you can't. The quality of what you're listening to is terrible. I mean, it's just terrible. There's no skirting any way around it. But anyway, so the entertainment system, it's actually pretty good. The only thing I didn't like was the map system, because it's not a movie map, so I can't really tell where I am. I can tell the speed of the airplane, the height I'm flying, where I'm going, how much time is left, the arrival time, the type of airplane I'm on, but I can't really tell exactly where I am, which is super annoying. And then sometimes the little thing that shows you Fort Lauderdale over here, Berlin over here, it's like all the way over to the right by Berlin, and I'm not even halfway there. So it's a little weird. So I think they should get some kind of moving map display. I know it's a low-cost carrier, and I'm probably expecting too much. But I think that would just make it, as an aviation geek, that would definitely help to tell me exactly where I am when I am. And there's no internet on board. I don't have that yet. I don't know if they're ever going to have that, but I think if you look at the plane, there's a little thing on there, but it's not probably not for internet. So, but the flight was good. Throughout the flight, they would, if you wanted water, you could get water. You just go back to the galley or something and get water. They would, you can, then about an hour or a little over an hour or so, they serve the arrival meal, which again, you can buy that. So when you buy the arrival meal, they would come back and serve it just before landing, and they would do that, and they served that, and they came and they cleaned up, and then we landed in Brandenburg, which was my second time landing on that airport, because I landed first time landing in it as Berlin Brandenburg, but I've landed there before as Schönefeld, because it's the same runway that they're using, same facility. Matter of fact, I think one of the terminals is actually the old Schönefeld terminal, but it's now Berlin Brandenburg, and the photo that I'm showing behind is a Norse photo of when we landed in Berlin. So I mean, a good flight. Hey, and when we landed, of course, we landed early. There was somebody at the gate, so we had to wait. So I think we arrived, if not just past arrival time, just about arrival time. So I remember talking about, the pilot's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna get there early." I'm like, So we had to hang out for a little bit because somebody was sitting at our gate. So, but all in all, it was a good flight, right? I mean, it was $286 to cross the Atlantic. And I thought that was actually a pretty good price, for what I got. I mean, I did get a whole row to myself, so that was good. It was a great flight. It's on a 787, so you can't beat that. And it was good. I mean, apart from the little things that I think could be improved, I think would definitely make the experience a little better. But when you spend $286 across the Atlantic, I mean, it's an 8-hour and 40-minute flight, and all you paid is $286. It's a good deal, and you get what you pay for, right? I didn't pay for all the fancy frills. Oh, and I don't have a frequent flyer program, which is super annoying because I'd love to get credit for my flight. So that would have been, really, really good, but they don't have that. Now, what I'm going to do is, and if you've flown Norse, just let me know what you thought of the experience. Like I said, the crew was good. Everything worked out well. We landed safely, which is always number one. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen, and let's go to my desktop. Actually, I'm going to share that one instead. Share. And what I wanted to show you was when you go to book a ticket, what you're going to end up seeing, right? And they're going all over the place now, but I'm going to do the same routing that I did. I'm going to do Fort Lauderdale. And if you're listening to this, I'm going to talk through it so you can get it. So I'm just doing Fort Lauderdale to Berlin. And I'm going to choose some dates in, let's say, May. Let's choose, I flew out on a Sunday. The flights are not daily. So that so it says the route from Fort Lauderdale to Berlin is currently available to book until the 24th of March, 2024, which is a bummer because they're telling me they're pulling Fort Lauderdale. So it's obviously not doing well. And so they're pulling it come the 24th of March. So what we're going to do then, 24th of March is like in a few days. Whoa. Okay. I'll be able to book until the 24th of March. So, wow. Okay. So I guess they are pulling out of Fort Lauderdale. Okay. Wow. But I'll show the flight on the 24th of March is actually $312 for economy and $596 for premium. Weird. They're pulling out of Fort Lauderdale. Jeez, I didn't realize they were doing that. Let's put it up here. Okay. Sorry, I have on Zoom, there's a little screen that shows up. So when you go to book, it shows you the flight times, 11 p.m., arriving at 1:40. The economy fare is $312 from that, and the premium is $596. So this is actually more expensive than what I paid. But they have different classes. So I had economy light. In this case, you have one under seat bag, and if you want to change it, it's going to cost you a fee. There's economy classic, which is $402. So it's a little more than I guess it's $90 more than the economy light. And then there's economy extra, which is $582. So you're looking at $312 if you're not taking any bags or anything like that. $402 if you want to take a carry-on, a full-size regular carry-on, which weighs up to 22 pounds. You want to check a bag and you want to get a meal and you want to change it. You can change your fare for a price. That's $402. Then if you want to be able to change your ticket without a price, you get priority boarding, you get an extra meal, and you get the same check bag. So basically everything and seat selection is included with that. So if you want to make sure you get where you sit, get where you sit. Now, everything they've added, you can add just by itself. So now if you get premium, which is the bigger seat in the 2-3-2 configuration in the forward part of the cabin, and they basically have three sections that the light, the classic, and the extra. So your ticket on this plane can go from $866 in premium to a low of $312. So I'm going to pick the $312 fare, and then I continue. Yeah, they're pulling out of Fort Lauderdale. Wow. Okay. So your next step is they're telling you what you can take with you. Now it's $45 for a carry-on, $60 for a check bag, $70 for a standard check bag. Light check is 33 pounds, standard check is 50 pounds, and heavy check is 70 pounds. So you can go $45, $60, $70 for the standard check, and $170 for a heavy bag. And if you have oversized stuff, it actually costs a little more. If you have musical instruments, 130, surfboard is 130, bulky bag is 175, sports equipment is $100, bike is $100. So everything that you want to take will cost you something. Every time they're always going to try to upsell you. So your traveling light bag is 22 centimeters by 36 centimeters. That's pretty tight. That's your normal little backpack that you have. Now the next step is seats. Those seats in the premium cabin is first row is $75 for all the seats there. And then the seat prices range from, if it's a middle seat, it's 35. If it's a window or aisle, it's 45. Then if it's an exit row, it's 120. So that explains why whenever the guy moved from he was probably in either 35 or 45 or a $75 seat, and he moved to the $120 seat in the exit row. That's why the flight attendant was like, "Sir, you have to move." The seat that I was in is a $25 seat, but I didn't have to pay because it was randomly assigned to me. And if I wanted an aisle, it would have been 35, and a window would have been 35. But some of the forward ones, like the ones from row 28 to 33, those are $45 for the aisles and the windows, as opposed to 35 for anything behind that. And I'm not picking a seat. I'm going to get a random seat when I get to the end. Now, meal purchases. I didn't buy a meal because when I looked at the price of the meal, I think it was like $30 was the price. Yeah. So if you want a child's meal, it's $30. The diabetic meal was 30, main meal was 30. And I was like, I wouldn't pay $30 for dinner on an airplane. I thought that was, I mean, it's food and a drink, but I didn't think I should pay that. So I went and I just bought my own stuff. Despite the fact that it's not warm, but if you do, it's $30, for the meal itself. And it's $20 for the next one. So you're basically paying $50 for food on that particular flight. But remember, if you need to look at when they bundle it with, like, their bags and all that kind of stuff, it might be cheaper to do that. If you're going to check a bag and you want to see the Sunman, it might be cheaper just to get all that together than to buy them separately. So definitely look at that whenever you do. I saw some of the food and it actually looks pretty good. Now, there's also airport priority check-in, right? So if you pay $20 extra, you can go up to the priority line and they'll take care of you. There is a bag drop fee. If you checked in online to check in at the airport, the fee is $10. Bag drop is free, but if you check in online, but if you do it at the airport, it's $10. So if you didn't tell them you're going to bring a bag and just drop it off, then it's $10. But if you did it online, you don't have to pay. There's priority boarding. You can pay for $15. You can also pay for carbon offset. It's like $7 for that. So every step of the way, they're going to charge you for something. You just need to decide what you want, right? I didn't do any. Oh, and the next step is just asking you for travel information, and then you pay. So I won't go through that part because it's pretty standard for those. But like everything else, you can, if you have mobility issues, you can tell them. You can't, there is no, they take your Regis number, they don't take your KTN, which is your known traveler number. So that gives you a good idea. But I mean, it's not a bad deal. I would have paid $311.73. And right now, if I go to Google Flights and I want to go from Fort Lauderdale to Berlin, and I'm going on the 24th, and it's kind of bizarre. They're actually stopping that route, March 24th. And it shows me the $312, which is the Norse flight. And let me hit my search. But everything else, so Norse is 312 and it's $543 on. Oh, the thing to with Norse is that they have, it's not code share, but they do connections with other low cost carriers. So they'll show you connections with like it's showing you can go to Oslo and connect via Oslo. Some of the connection they're showing. So, but the closest fare is $543, and that is still with Norse, but that is connecting during Fort Lauderdale to Oslo, and then Oslo to Berlin on where are we going on Norwegian. So that's kind of what they did. So it looks like they're stopping Fort Lauderdale to Berlin, but they're doing Fort Lauderdale to Oslo. Looks like that's what they're doing. I was gonna show you 543. Hold on one sec. Okay. And if you want to go and say like JetBlue and Aer Lingus, it's 1,045. JetBlue, Singapore Airlines, and Lufthansa is 925. JetBlue, Icelandair is 1,240. So if you want to go last minute, and you have to go somewhere, the fares on Norse are actually quite good. But just remember, if you're going to check a bag, it might cost a little more. But even with their bag fare, it was like 500 and something dollars. That is still cheaper than a lot of the other fares. The next cheaper fare was on JetBlue and Singapore Airlines. But then at least you get points, right? You take JetBlue to Fort Lauderdale, and then you take Singapore from JFK to Frankfurt, and then you'd have to go again from Frankfurt to Berlin. Actually, from Frankfurt to Berlin on Lufthansa is what you would do. So not bad, I mean, but you get American points in JetBlue, and you'd get points on Singapore Airlines on the other one. So that gives you an idea of I guess I could stop sharing. So that gives an idea of my experience on Norse, which like I said, I mean, it's pretty good. I am going to try to fly them again because I want to go to Paris in June for the Paris Air Show, and the fares are ridiculously high. Even Norse's fares are high. So I'm gonna have to try to figure out how I'm gonna make that happen. But so the other thing to say, if you want to fly, I was talking about connections. If you want to fly from a market that Norse doesn't fly, let's say you want to fly Houston to Berlin, they will give you connections for that, but they will give you connections on low cost carriers, which you can actually buy on their website because they have an agreement with this company called Dohop, DOHOP, I think is the name of it. And what they do is that they are a kind of a low fare, low cost carrier thing where they show connections between low cost carriers. But remember that low cost carriers typically don't have any agreements with each other. So you have to buy separate tickets, but the engine will show you ones that connect. So it'll say, hey, this one arrives at 10 o'clock and the next one is at 11:15, so you can make the connection. Recognize that if you check a bag, you probably have to go pick up your bag. So you have to enter the country and go check your bag in with that new airline. I don't think they do interline checks, but that's something that you need to check when you see those. So that's all I have for this episode. Sorry, it's a little lengthy. But if you've ever flown Norse, let me know and leave a comment and let me know what your experience is like. And if you're ever thinking of crossing the Atlantic, it's not about option. It's on a 787. I mean, come on. It's a pretty nice plane. And I didn't have a middle seat, but it was a night flight. Although when we got to Berlin, it was like 2 o'clock in the evening. But it was a good flight. I had a good time. And I talked about some of the things that I think they could do a little different, but it's a low cost carrier, so it's probably not going to happen because they're trying to save money. All right, this is Kerwin and signing off of another episode of What's Happening Travel with Kusho and Kerwin, and have a good trip. Talk to you soon.